with some modifications. So the things that happen at the table, just call it at the table. Time and space, woo, right? We designate a time to do this. We designate a space, whether it's a physical space or a space outside of time and space, and we cordon it off, whatever that happens to look like. We define what time and space is for the reading. We might set an atmosphere. As the reader, sometimes we set an atmosphere, whether it's setting up candles or making the place smell nice, or whether there's some type of music playing in the background, or whether we don't have any real atmosphere, we're just sitting back and chilling. There are personal cues that happen between the reader and the querent, right? There are facial cues. There is body language. These are some of the things that we're going to lose a lot of when we start to read online, but we need to be aware of these things. There's communication, there's dialogue. There's the timing of the appointment that's going to happen. There's trust that is established when you're reading in person. And there's exchange of energy, and that might be hugs, or when the querent shuffles or touches the cards in some way, or maybe you don't let them do that with your deck or with some other divinatory tool, but there's some type of an exchange of physical energy very often in a live reading. There's the exchange of money sometimes, or a barter, or some other type of energy exchange. And then there's the reading. So there are a whole lot of things going on during a live reading. Now, what happens is we can have the same dynamics during an online reading, but we have to pay more attention to them. We have to be more aware of them, especially on the communication side. That is the biggest part of this. So time and space are what we agree they are, right? Time may or may not exist in your own personal way of dealing with everything. Time may not exist. It's a construct, right? So you have to decide and agree with your querent what the timing of the reading is. You're going to have that discussion, and you're going to have to agree on a space. So online, that space might look like an email reading. It might look like a Skype reading where you have a video chat, or some other type of venue in between the written and the video itself. The space, the time is what you agree, what you set. From the time the querent reaches out to you to the time that the reading is done, and any post-reading discussion that you need to have, that timing should more or less be sussed out at the beginning of your communications. And I'm going to talk more about that in a little bit, but that's time and space. I might say, if somebody reaches out to me, I do a lot of email readings because they're more convenient for me to do. Somebody might say, I have an urgent question, and I will look at my own schedule and say, ask me your question. I have 2 days in which to respond to this, and I will get my response back to you. That's just me working things out with the client, with them deciding what works for them as well. Setting an atmosphere. I'm not the tarot reader who sets atmosphere. I will literally sit down anywhere and read for anybody anytime in the physical world. But I also understand that there are readers who need to set some kind of atmosphere. And so if you need to do that, if you're doing a Skype video, you might want to have some crystals in the background, or a nice drop cloth of some kind in the background, Celtic knotwork, or some candles lit in the background. That is entirely up to you, but you need to be aware, especially online, of what your world looks like to them in this very tiny window that they're getting to see your face, right? Linda's got a gorgeous backdrop that she's using here today with the water running behind her and the trees in the background and everything. And that says a lot about who she is. And so you might choose either a backdrop, a virtual backdrop, or something. I like that backdrop with the owl. you know, there's set the atmosphere if you need to. It can be important to your clients, and if it's important to you, then take the time to make that happen online as well. Oh, by the way, for reading, if I'm going to use a backdrop, I like something a little less complicated because I want them to focus on the reading, on the actual communication. So I might not want a whole lot of things in the background, but something a little bit more focused so that they can focus on the dialogue that we're having during the reading. Communication is the big thing. We need to communicate everything very precisely when we're reading for someone online. Your choice of words is so important. And I really, really, really like to put everything in writing, which is one of the reasons that I like email readings, because I can really focus my thoughts. There won't be random words in the reading. I'm going to think about it before it goes out to the client so that I know that I've made my point very clearly. And even at the very beginning of the process, say a client reaches out to me, and they've never had a reading from me before, right? I need to tell them what they can expect from a reading from me. So I have a standard, you know, even when I do a live reading, I let people know what they're going to expect from me. I need to do that and communicate that really clearly when I'm reading online for someone. I need to be very, very focused and say, I don't do, there's a great fortune in your future, you're going to get a whole lot of money. I don't do, there's a tall, dark, handsome stranger in your future kind of readings. I read emotional, psychological issues, spiritual issues. And if that's what you're looking for, then you've come to the right person. If it's not what you're looking for, then you need to go find somebody else. I don't, some of us don't read for people under 18. You need to say that. We need to have our disclaimers in writing up front, in writing, not just verbally expressed online. Have it in writing so that the other person really, really gets. Some people put that on their splash page if you're actually doing readings through your website or something like that. People will put that disclaimer information right up front. You need to make sure that that has been conveyed before you start talking about everything else, before you talk about price or energy exchange or anything else. And these communications, just make them really, really clear. Also, when I'm reading in person, sometimes readings go way off to the left or way off to the right or way internal. We take all kinds of tangents when we're reading live if we have an unstructured amount of time. When you're reading online, though, it's really easy to lose the thread. So focus on getting your client to one or two questions that they need answered. And for me, that might be, I just need a general reading for the year. That's fine. But let's not stray off into a million places. Let's focus on one or two questions and let them know in your upfront conversations about reading that if they have additional questions later, that's going to be another reading. Or I allow one or two follow-up questions at the end of the reading. You know, that's your choice. You decide that. Okay. But communicate it. Be very, very clear with people about what you're doing. I personally ask for the client's date of birth if I don't know them. It helps me focus. And if they know their moon sign and their rising sign, even better. But I'm not going to sit and cast a whole chart for somebody before I read for them. But that information is useful to me. So if there is other information that you need from your client besides a question, make sure that you ask for that. That may help clarify some issues for you so that you don't have to do a whole lot of back and forth. If I know that somebody's sun sign is in Leo, it's going to make a whole big difference to me as a reader than if their sun sign is, you know, in Aquarius. So those are things that I look at. You need to decide what information you need up front from your client. Don't keep going back for more information. Get what you need up front and then run with it. Trust your intuition on your online readings, just like you would trust your intuition in person. It's still the same thing. We're losing a lot of body cues. We are body language. We are losing a lot of facial cues, even though the face, wah, we can see somebody's face somewhat clearly online. It's a little bit easier to lie this way. And so if you have relied on facial cues and body language in the past in your readings, and some of us don't know that we do it because we read people so well, but that is something that you are going to have to compensate for. And that's why written communication or clear, concise communication is really, really important. But trust your skills, trust your knowledge, trust your intuition. And one of the things that I do in any reading, whether it's live or online, but it's really important online, is to sit in proxy for my clients. I am that person as I am shuffling the cards. I am that person sitting across the table from me. I am sitting as them when I set up for the reading, so that I am assuming their position, I am assuming their personhood for the focus of that reading, so that I can feel whatever energy I need to feel, so that I can get whatever intuitive information I need to get. Quantum entanglement is a real thing. If I need to resonate at somebody else's frequency, I can do that if I choose. And the way that I do that is by sitting in proxy for my client. I do it when I'm sitting at the table with them because I place the cards in front of me, not in front of them. Because I don't like to read upside down, right? Sometimes I'll actually pull them to the side of me instead of across the table because I want them to see the cards from my perspective, or I'll turn them around afterwards. But the fact is that I need to sit in proxy for my client. And it really, really helps to have done that all these years, because now reading online really helps me focus and sit in proxy for my client as I'm doing other types of readings where they are not in the room with me. They're not even in the same state most of the time. So really quickly, and then I'm going to open this up for discussion. I just want to give you my personal flow for doing an email reading, because that's what I do most of the time. I will do video chat, Skype readings, Facebook, Face Live time, whatever that thing is, FaceTime, whatever that thing is called. I will do those types of readings for people that I really, really know well. But I like doing the email readings for people that I don't, because I tend to be more precise in my communication through email. So what I will do is a client will contact me, or somebody will contact me and ask for a reading. I will give them my disclaimer, which is my personal disclaimer. It's what I've decided that I am ethically bound to do and to not do. And in that, I will also talk about my pricing structure and let them know, per question, how long a reading should take, et cetera, et cetera. At that point, they either choose to get a reading with me or not. They will send me payment. I will get their question or questions, depending on what we have agreed to. And then I will provide a due date. If they want a year ahead, it may take me a couple of hours to sit down and suss out a really good reading and well thought out email. And so I might say, look, I'm going to need 2 days before I return this. If they just have a real quick one shot, I need to make a decision by tonight. And I don't tell people what to do, by the way, that's not my job, but I will give them information that might help them make that decision. And so I might say, look, I can get back to you in a couple of hours, but whatever that is, just know that you've got to have that time frame right up front, communicated very, very clearly. Then I will sit down in a quiet space, very quiet space. I will do the reading. I will make a ton of notes, and then I will sit down and rewrite the reading from start to finish. When I give a reading to my clients, there's a complete email that begins with, hi, this is Mama Gina, and you contacted me on such and such a date about a reading. This was your question. And you repeat that question verbatim, straight out of whatever their communication was. Whatever their question was, that's where you start the reading. And then what I do is I give, for me, I give an overview of the reading, a real quick, here's the answer in a couple of sentences, and then here's why. And I delineate, I tell them the tarot card, the reasoning behind it. I give them the information that I intuit, as well as some of my knowledge base on tarot, whether it's Kabbalistic, astrological, or what numerological, whatever it is that happens to come through in that reading that I'm depending on. I give them that information. I should tell them what it is. And I also take pictures of every single card and of the reading as a whole. And that all goes through the email. And I follow up with, my personal ethical code is be nice to people, even if you see they're a jerk in the card, to be nice to people. And so I usually end with, I hope that this has been in some way helpful. Please let me know if you have any questions. As per our agreement, you can ask one or two, or whatever our agreement was, questions as a follow-up. I look forward to your thoughts. Boom, done. And then I'm done. And I usually get back pretty decent replies that say, yeah, you gave me a lot to think about. Thank you very much. Once in a while, I get another question, and that's okay too. So Linda, when you're ready, can you open up stuff? I'm looking at my chat. Time is always relative. And then Drew-Ann, you said, I love that idea, but I don't know what you said. So when everybody gets unmuted here.
Oh, the idea I loved was that you take a picture of each card as well as a picture of the reading and send it with them. Because that would be helpful even when, even if you were doing a private phone reading with someone. Yes. If you could do that, that would be nice. I love that idea of giving them the picture of everything.
Yeah. A lot of my in-person readings, I do less readings than I do midwife spiritual sessions. And so I like the fact that people are sitting looking at the cards, because sometimes I don't tell them what I see. I ask them what they see, and put the cards right in front of them. And so I think that it's important in a reading, even if it's post-reading, to let them see the images, because they might see something else and come back and say, hey, what about that cricket that I saw in that card, or what is that thing that I saw in that card? Why is there so much blue in the reading? That kind of a thing. And those are cues of what they are focused on, and that can be very helpful post-reading.
That's awesome.
So anybody have any questions or thoughts? How are you guys doing readings online?
I just had a thought to kind of add on to the sending them the picture. So in my in-person readings, generally before, I will take a look at the card and not say anything and let them see the card first and see, okay, does anything pop out to you? Is anything super significant to you? And often let people, or encourage them to take pictures of the cards in person anyway. And that way they can maybe they remember, oh yeah, my grandma loved dragonflies, and think about it later on that way. In person, I really like to clear the deck with the other person. I know some people don't let other people touch their decks, but I like to get a general feel by letting them go through each of the cards, and I go through the cards and just see if anything pops out ahead of time, so that I can kind of get a feel for where they are, similar to what you were talking about, asking their signs. Right. Rather than that, because I'm not as savvy in astrology, but I do know my decks. So I can say, okay, what is popping out here before we begin? And that's something I think I would struggle with more online. I think I would need to go through and check those things myself.
Yeah, I think that's a really, really good observation. And I like you showing cards to people first. I have friends who have 20 decks in their basket at the shop, and they let the client choose the deck. And that also informs that informs the tarot reader. For me, I have one deck that I travel with, because until recently, I travel 9 to 10 months out of the year. I can't be carrying a whole bunch of stuff with me. So I travel with one deck that I read with. But there are other ways to get other people's energy and to get their, and for me, online, that comes down to an astrological quickie, like I said. but for you, it might be something else. You might do numerology on their name if you do numerology. Or, you just, hell, you might go out to their Facebook page and look at the last 5 posts and see what they're focused on. If it's all cat pictures, you know what that person is. But this is really where it comes down to sitting in proxy for your clients, assuming their energy signature. And that can sound uncomfortable to some of us, but for me, it's one of the best ways to match vibration with the person that I'm reading for. And it happens naturally live. And sometimes I have to make that shift when they're not in the room with me. But that is the best way that I can connect with my client, is to be the client in the chair shuffling the cards, because I too let anybody touch my tarot deck. I let them shuffle it. I don't give them rules on it. I just say, just shuffle it until you're ready and then give me the deck. And so really, really good observations. I like that. And you know what? It's not a bad idea if you have the time to invest. I like the idea of them seeing the cards before a reading. You might want to draw the cards for the reading, take a quick snapshot and send it to them and say, this is what I will be working on. And that way, that might help you connect to them a little bit better, because they might give you feedback on the cards that they see. So that's a really good idea. I like that. Thank you. Anybody else?
So I have a question. So I know I've read with you before, which is kind of fun. So I did a reading for someone through Facebook, and she was driving her car, and she was driving in a circle, and no matter what I said, she was like, well, I don't know. And she was looking here, and you could see she was doing and I was so distracted. And I was like, but you wanted to do it now, and you wanted to do this. And I said, no, I said, I'm going to do this reading. And I gave her the best reading I could. Would you consider stopping the reading and asking them to call you when they weren't so distracted? And if they had paid ahead of time, would you just refund their money?
Honestly, that is a hard question, because when somebody needs a reading, they need a reading, right?
Right.
But we don't have an obligation to just provide something that's crap, and I'm not saying your reading was crap,
No, right.
but they weren't getting anything out of it because they were driving, right?
Yeah.
I think I would have said, look, let me put all of this in an email and I will send it to you.
That's a great idea.
And I would have ended the reading. I would have just said, look, this is not a good time for you. And actually, I can focus my thoughts better this way. And I would have said, let me send this to you in writing on Facebook in a couple of hours, and I will give you all the information. I think that, we get to set the time and the space in conjunction with the other person. We don't have to just agree to whatever they've decided works for them, because it obviously wasn't working for her, was it?
No, it wasn't. It was a very interesting reading, and I knew it was factual, but I knew she wasn't happy, and I was like, well.
Right. Beth just chatted. It can be covered in the expectations ahead of time that the best results happen when both people are present. So yeah, I mean, you obviously did what you needed to do in the moment, and I trust your intuition as well as you do. So I'm sure that it turned out to be okay. But if it had been me, I would have said, look, I'm just going to write all this down so that you can read it when you're parked somewhere.
Just pull over a second and let's chat,
Right.
But yeah, so that's why I'm not doing those readings anymore.
Well, right. The other thing about that is that it's dangerous. It's dangerous for them. It's dangerous for other people that are on the road. And that's not acceptable, to be putting your life or someone else's life in danger. If you're going to do something like that, you need to stop and be aware of the surroundings.
Yeah. No, that's well said. That is well said. Listen, I don't talk on my phone at all in the car, and people think I'm insane because everybody does it. But when my son started driving, when I was teaching him to drive, I said, we're making the rule right now. Nobody answers the phone when you're driving. You don't answer the phone when you're driving. And, so I always have kind of an issue with people who are on the phone all the time while they're driving, because I think it divides their focus from what is actually important and in front of them at the moment. Certainly, I think doing the tarot reading with somebody on the phone while they're driving would be just kind of disastrous. I think you're right. So yeah. Hey.
Hey, I've been, for years doing the in-person readings. I've been kind of nervous doing virtual readings. Can we get a couple of hints about that?
So you're doing just clairvoyant type of readings?
Yeah, well, with cards and both.
Okay. As you're doing the readings, right?
Yes.
I think the rules still apply. I think that clear communication is probably number one. Setting a space and a time where both of you can be focused. Do you do best online or like a video chat, or do you think you do best in writing?
Well, I'm just opening it up, doing this whole issue, this whole pandemic thing that's going through.
Right.
Everybody's just discovering their own person, their own self. Well, I've always had this ability,
mm-hmm.
And I feel more comfortable doing readings for people I know.
That's perfectly acceptable. You do not have to read for anybody you don't want to read for. Number one, you do not have to say yes to a reading just because somebody asks. I have different rules for people that I know versus people that I don't know.
Okay.
People that I know, I am happy to get on and video chat with them for 2 hours about a reading. Okay.
Right.
Because we know each other and we already have an established dialogue. We have an established history, and I feel much more confident that they are going to hear what I am saying, and that I will also be listening to what they need. With somebody I don't know, that history has not been established. So I'm much more likely to do an email reading for someone I don't know.
Email reading.
And be much more narrow about the scope of the reading. I will limit people who I don't know to 1 or 2 questions at first. Because I want the communication to be real clear. And if they ask 20 questions, then we're all over the map. The other thing that you might consider is if somebody asks for a reading and you want to do stream of consciousness stuff where you're channeling or letting something else speak through you, rather than doing a live video chat with them, what you might do is get their information and then sit down, turn your camera on, and record your session before you send it to them so that you are aware of what you are saying, so that you can see what it looks like. And you might want to do this with friends a couple dozen times before you go live with that type of thing, because that it might be interesting for you to actually see what you're doing, because channeling can look very, very different for different people, and it might be helpful for you to find that focus by videotaping some of your sessions before you send them out so that you can watch them as well.
Well, thank you very much.
My pleasure. My pleasure. Thank you for the question. That was a really great question. Anybody else have any questions?
I have a couple of questions for the group. I was in the process of typing. Hang on, baby, because I have my youngin here. It can get a little bit noisy. But, so my first question for the group. You're right there. Oh, you want a bungee cord? We're organizing our camp gear, even though we're not at Roxana right now.
Yay.
But My first question was, are there any types of questions you don't answer? Like I've had some questions based on like fertility or job promotions, and I generally steer clear of yes or no anyway. My second question was asking about what, so I have not yet ventured into payment for readings because for a really long time, readings are a piece of my karma yoga and giving back. And so I'm still feeling a little bit conflicted, but also have been reading long enough now that I'm like, I have had people offer to pay me, and I'm just not sure how I feel about it. And so my second question was, what was your process like there moving into reading for people just because, and then reading for your skills and moving into that? And then the third question also related is, what is your pricing structure like? Because I have a friend who just started who is really having trouble there. So those are my three questions, and answer as you will for anyone.
Beth, those are really, really good questions. I'll answer real quick and then let everybody else jump in. For me personally, there are questions that I will not answer directly with yes or no's, most of them concerning death. Am I going to die? You know what? That doesn't really help a whole lot anyway. So I am a little bit cautious about answering questions like that. But you are perfectly within your rights to say, I will not answer these types of questions, and then holding that line. That is your choice as a reader. This is what I'm talking about when I say to have an ethical code of some kind. The ethical code is there to protect you from doing things that you are not comfortable with. And within that ethical code for some readers is, I don't take money for my readings. And that is perfectly okay if they believe that their gift is something that they need to be offering for no money. That is fine. I really strongly believe in an exchange of energy of some kind, because people do not value in this country, people do not value what they do not pay for. So they need to exchange some type of energy. Maybe it's a barter. You know what? That dress that you have on that rack, you want a reading? How about we do an exchange for that? And so money is not changing hands. Or maybe they're going to pay it forward in some way, and that's great too. I personally, I charge. Indeed, I charge. I make my living playing music and doing readings and other various metaphysical things. I don't have a problem with it. I also do a lot of free readings because when people come to me in need, I'm in a position where I can offer that. And I'm fortunate with that. But I do charge. And usually over the last 30 years, I have charged whatever the going shop rates are in my area. So you might want to check. It's usually $1 a minute up to $2 a minute. And that is perfectly fair. Some people charge much more and they're very much worth it. And some people charge much less, and that is their choice. That is your choice. I would start with, what do the local shops charge? And it's usually around $1 to $2 a minute. Anybody else have any suggestions for Beth?
Oh, absolutely. I'll jump in there. I sort of started out in reverse. I learned the tarot, and I was an aura photographer, and the first reading I did was working at a shop making money. So I started, they looked at me and went, you're really a great intuitive. You're going to do tarot readings. And I said, I don't do tarot readings. He goes, that's your place there, and we're going to book you. And so I started out getting paid for readings. So I've never really, I will do free readings for people. When I'm at festivals, I do 15-minute readings for $15. I do charge the going rate because I'm familiar. I'm very close to Casadega. They charge $60 for a 30-minute reading, and
Yep.
I will charge $40 to $60 for a 30-minute reading because it's worth it. It's your time, it's your energy, it's your thought, it's your skills. And if, it's just like if you're a construction worker and you go out and you build something, you're going to get paid $10, $20, $30 an hour, and it's no different doing readings. As for things I stay away from, if I see the death card come up in a tarot reading, because I do intuitive tarot readings, I do my best to read it as rebirth. and to put a spin on it, because people get freaked out. Oh my God, I'm going to die. And you try to spin that. I also stay away from, will my business be incredibly successful? I've got this venture. Are they going to sign the paperwork? I did work as a phone line psychic for a while, and you never want to answer, yes, they're going to sign that paperwork in an hour. Have a great day. Also, like you said, the fertility questions, because like, Beth put in the chat, I don't answer questions on fertility since you can be fertile in so many different ways. Absolutely. You can also be prosperous in so many different ways. So it's really honing in on what people want for the readings.
Yeah. Those are really good observations, Joanne. Yeah, we for those of us who don't know, Joanne and I are like sisters from two different planes, and we do tag team people sometimes reading, and it's a disastrous event for the person we're reading for.
The term is brutally honest,
Brutally
sisters, I believe.
honest bitches. Yes, indeed. So we've got just a little bit of time left because I want to give Linda enough time to get over into the other chat room.
Gone.
Go ahead.
I think Linda's gone. There's two Lindas in here too.
Oh, okay. Okay. Good.
I'm not gone. I'm still here.
Oh, okay.
Linda's not gone. She's still here. Okay. But I did want to share one thing with you guys, and then we have a couple more minutes to chat before we have to close up. There are two things that I want to say here, and one is a tip. The first thing is, when you're reading online, especially, get out of your own way. Your doubts about not being able to connect with the client, that is a space-time issue, and you have control over space and time, and you can sit in proxy for your client. So just get out of your own way. You're getting the right information. It's your job to convey it well and to communicate it clearly. The second thing is something that I have done for live reading sessions, but I've also done this a lot when I do online readings. And that is, before I sit down to do a reading for a client, I pull a card for me. And that card is what the reading is not about. That's my shit. And that way I have isolated what my stuff is and set it aside for a moment. Yes, I'm going to put the card back in the deck, but I am isolating the issue that this reading for my client will not be about, so that I understand that if this card pops up or something with similar vibration pops up during the reading, it's likely that I got crossover and that that's my stuff. It really helps to keep me out of the reading and to keep the client as the focus and as the center of the reading, and to know what my stuff is. And so I always pull one card that says, oh, by the way, this is what the reading will not be about. This is something you got to deal with later. Does that make sense?
Yeah. I just wanted to say in relation to that, you won't answer questions or about death or talk about death. I'm rewatching Avatar, and Uncle Iroh is the wise old sage, and he meets a fortune teller, and she asks him if he wants his fortune told, and he's like, a man my age only has one thing left to learn, and I'd prefer it remain a mystery.
Oh, I like that. Yeah, it's not that I won't talk about death in my readings, but I do not give definitive answers as to time. You know what? If somebody's got terminal cancer and they want to know if they're going to die or not, let's face it, we all know the answer to that, right? 99%. So it's no use discussing that. What's more valuable is to discuss how they are going to spend the time that they have, and what are some things that they can still do. And that's where the tarot for me is most effective, is it gives us the stories that we want to tell and the stories that we've already told, and how to get to a place that we want to be. So
I am fairly certain we're all going to die.
I think so. I don't think any of us get out of here alive. Yep. So for me personally, if someone asks a real short one-off question where I'm probably going to pull 1 or 2 cards, and honestly, my readings depend, the spreads that I use, the layouts that I use completely depend on the question. So if they ask me a short, sweet, quick question, they're going to get a short, sweet, quick answer. And I might say $20 because I'll probably spend 15 minutes putting it all together and writing it down and getting it emailed back to them, taking the pictures. If somebody asks me for a year ahead, it's $60 because I'm probably going to spend 2 hours, even though I'll say I only spent 1. I'm probably going to spend 2 hours with those cards, getting all of my quick notes written down, and then putting everything into a clear email, taking all the pictures, and getting everything sent to them. So that's a flat $60, for a year ahead kind of a thing. Because I'll either pull 10 cards like a Celtic Cross sort of thing, or I might pull 12 for a Wheel of the Year kind of a reading, and that's a lot of cards on the table to suss out. So yeah, $60 for something that's a little bit open-ended and is probably going to take an hour or 2 of my time. Does that answer your question? Okay, thanks. Anybody else? Anybody have any anybody here not reading online, but they want to, and they have like one thing that's in their way? Nobody's talking. All right. Well, go ahead.
And want me to read for them is the only thing that's in the way of that.
Getting clients?
Yeah.
Oh, for heaven's sakes, I love you. I love your reading. Honestly, that's a matter of offering and putting it in a way that I'll tell you what, be careful how you put it when you put it out there that you want to read for people. Because there have been times when I've needed a quick $20 and I've said, I'm open for readings today. And what I get are a lot of requests for free readings. When what I really needed was $20. Again, communication is a big deal, right? But you also want to be careful about advertising for services online. Just be careful. So for those, worded in such a way that people are going to understand that you need some kind of an energy exchange if you want to make money. And if you don't, that's fine too. Just be real clear in your communication. But honestly, so many people really could use somebody to talk to, especially right now, that I think if you put it out there, you'll probably get a few people who want to bite. Because Kaylee, you're amazing. I love that smile. All right.
Okay.
Hang on. I said, I'm looking at a quick Beth thing. You mentioned having put their question verbatim. Do you ever suggest a reword for phrasing? Yes. I'll take this as the last question. That's a really good question. Sometimes when people say, should I, followed by whatever it is they should or shouldn't do. Should I questions, I don't like them because the universe loves it when we do stuff that's going to cause us to grow. And sometimes people don't need the pain that growth is going to give them in the next 2 years. And they have a choice. They can say, wait, I need to be a little bit stable over the next year or 2. I've got a 3-year-old. Can I not go through the big changes? So if somebody says, should I buy the red race car? And I hate that question, because that red race car might take them off the side of a mountain, and the universe is going to say yes, because your next reincarnation is going to be so awesome, right? So what I prefer to do is help them reorganize their thoughts around the should I questions. And what I will do a lot of times is they will say, should I take the job at company A, or should I take the job at company B? And I will say, it's not a question of should you do either one, but what might happen in the future based on current events if you took this one versus what you took if you took the company B. And so I will literally lay out 3 cards for each path. 1 for 6 months out, one for a year out, and one for 2 years out. And so I will read what happens if they take the path of taking the job with company A, and what happens 6 months out, a year out, and 2 years out if they take the job with company B. And a lot of times I will also lay a third path in the middle that is the unknown path, which is an option that they have not yet considered. And what happens 6 months out, a year out, and 2 years out. Adjust to timeframes to whatever is appropriate for the question, but that's just throwing out a possibility. So should I questions, I often say, let's narrow down your choices. What is your choice? Is it an either or choice? And then let's look at your life if you make this decision versus if you make this decision. Anything can change along the way because you change along the way. But as things stand right now, what do things look like? And then I give them some clarity for both of those paths. And that works a lot better than saying, should I? And those are the questions that I don't like and that I ask clients to reword. So I want to thank you all so much for being here this morning. This was absolutely lovely. Linda, Amon, thank you so much for helping get this organized. I have a concert tonight. Come see it. Yay. I'm excited. I love you guys so much. I miss Roxana. I miss all of you. I miss the hugs. And just go be kind and be safe and be well. And I'll see you guys tonight online.
And I'm going to plug Mama Gina really quick. Mama Gina, many years ago, I don't know if you guys know this or not, wrote a book called Tarot Spreads, Threads, and Mandalas. And she never plugs herself. I'm going to sign myself up as her manager. You can still purchase Tarot Spreads, Threads, and Mandalas on Kindle. Look, Gina Estevez. I put the name over in the chat. It's a fabulous book.
You did.
I did. It's a fabulous book.
Thank you.
Thank you,
you
Gina,
guys.
and everyone.
Mama Gina, this is the outfit I wore for your class.
You look fabulous. I love it. I love it. Great.